If you're watching this right now, there's a good chance the day has already taken a lot from you. Not just your time, your energy, your patience, the version of you that starts the morning with good intentions. She's been stretched in every direction today, and by the time the evening comes, there's very little left. You've taken care of dinner. You've answered messages. You've shown up for the people who needed you. And somewhere along the way, you put yourself last on the list again, not because you don't matter, but because that's just what the day became. And now it's almost bedtime. And instead of feeling peaceful, you feel wired and exhausted at the same time. Your body is begging for rest, but your mind won't stop. There are thoughts circling, a low hum of worry you can't quite name. And if you're honest, part of you is already bracing for another night of waking up at 3 a.m, staring at the ceiling, wondering what's wrong with you. I know that feeling. I've sat with so many women who describe their evenings exactly that way. I'll never forget a woman who once said to me, "Sarah, nights used to be my favorite part of the day. Now I almost dread going to bed because I know I'll either lie there unable to fall asleep or I'll wake up at 3 a.m. and my mind will just go." And she looked at me with this quiet exhaustion and said, "I keep thinking I should be able to fix this, but I don't even know where to start." And I've heard versions of that story more times than I can count. Women who are doing everything right, eating reasonably, moving their bodies, trying to wind down, and still struggling to sleep the way they once did. Still waking up feeling like the night didn't restore them. If that's you, I want you to hear this clearly. There is nothing wrong with you. Your body isn't broken. It has simply changed. And what's happening to your sleep isn't a personal failure. It's biology. And once you understand what's actually going on, everything about your evenings can start to look very different. Today, I'm sharing 7 things every woman over 45 needs to hear before bed. And most women never do. They're not complicated. They don't require a complete life overhaul. But they matter more than most people realize. And by the end of this video, I think you're going to feel something shift. Before we begin, I'm Sarah Mitchell. I've spent years studying hormonal health, menopause science, and the everyday habits that can help women over 45 reclaim their energy, their sleep, and their sense of self. If you're new here, welcome. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss what's coming. And if this video speaks to you, a thumbs up helps more women find it when they need it most. I also want to mention something before we dive in. I have a resource called the Hormone Reset Guide, a complete daily system created specifically for women over 45. Module 4 goes deep into sleep, stress, and cortisol, including why so many women wake up at 3 a.m. and what may actually be driving it. There's also a bonus inside called the Hormone-Friendly Morning Routine Checklist, because how your night ends and how your morning begins are far more connected than most people realize. The link is in the description and pinned in the first comment. I'll come back to it later, but if you want to take a look now, it's right there. And one thing I always want to be clear about. Everything I share here is for educational and informational purposes, based on wellness principles and good practices. It is not a substitute for personalized medical care. Please always work with your healthcare provider about what's right for your body. Now, let's talk about bedtime, because here's something most women over 45 were never told. And it matters more than almost anything else I'll say today. The quality of your sleep tonight is being shaped right now. Not just by what you do when you get into bed, but by what's happening in the hours before. In your thoughts, your habits, and the way you're treating your body in the quiet part of the evening. And when your hormones are shifting, the way your nervous system responds to those evening hours changes too. When estrogen and progesterone begin to decline, as they naturally do in perimenopause and beyond, your nervous system becomes more reactive. Sounds that never used to wake you suddenly do. Thoughts that once felt manageable start circling at midnight. Your body temperature becomes harder to regulate, and cortisol, your primary stress hormone, which should naturally be winding down, by evening, can stay elevated much longer than it once did, keeping you alert when every part of you wants to rest. This isn't weakness. This isn't aging poorly. This is your body navigating a profound hormonal transition, and it deserves to be understood, not blamed. And that's exactly why these 7 things matter. Because they're not just sleep tips. They're invitations to work with your body instead of against it, to give your nervous system what it's actually asking for, even if no one has ever explained what that is. Let's begin with the first one, and I think for a lot of women, this one alone is going to change something. The first thing every woman over 45 needs to hear before bed is this: you are allowed to stop. Not just physically, mentally, emotionally, completely. It sounds obvious, but for most women, the evening never truly ends. The body is in bed, but the mind is still moving, running through tomorrow's list, replaying a conversation that didn't sit right, holding the low hum of everything that still feels unfinished. And what most women don't realize is that this isn't simply a matter of willpower or habit. After 45, it has a clear hormonal explanation. Progesterone, one of the first hormones to decline significantly in perimenopause, acts as a natural calming agent in the brain. It binds to GABA receptors, the same receptors that promote feelings of calm and ease. When progesterone is higher, the mental wind down that happens naturally in the evening is partly driven by this hormonal process. When progesterone drops, that built-in quieting mechanism weakens. The thoughts that once settled on their own now need more intentional support to slow down. This is why conscious permission matters more than most women expect. Telling yourself clearly, "This day is done. What remains can wait," isn't a passive thought. It's a signal to your nervous system, and your nervous system after 45 is paying close attention to those signals, including the ones you send yourself about whether you've done enough to deserve rest. The second thing has to do with cortisol, and understanding this one can change everything about how you structure your evenings. Cortisol follows a predictable daily rhythm. It peaks in the early morning to help you wake and feel alert, then gradually declines through the day, reaching its lowest point in the late evening to allow deep, restorative sleep to begin. That rhythm is partly regulated by estrogen. As estrogen declines after 45, the cortisol curve can flatten and shift, meaning evening cortisol levels that should be falling may stay elevated longer than your body intends. The practical consequence of this is significant. Activities in the 2 hours before bed that introduce even mild stress, checking news, scrolling social media, reviewing work emails, watching something emotionally intense, can send cortisol signals to the brain at exactly the moment the body is trying to wind it down. This doesn't mean your evenings need to be rigid or joyless. It means understanding that your body is running a specific biological sequence before sleep, and that sequence works better when the environment supports it rather than interrupts it. What supports it? Dimmer light in the evening, which signals the brain to begin melatonin production. Quieter, lower stimulation activities. A clear transition point in the evening. Even something as simple as making a cup of herbal tea or changing into comfortable clothes. That your nervous system learns to associate with the shift from doing to resting. These aren't arbitrary wellness suggestions. They are working with the hormonal architecture of your body. The third thing is about body temperature, and it's one of the most physiologically important and most overlooked factors in sleep quality after 45. Initiating and maintaining deep sleep requires a drop in core body temperature of approximately 1 to 2 degrees Fahrenheit. This is not a preference. It is a biological requirement. The brain uses that temperature drop as a key signal to move into the deeper, more restorative stages of sleep. Estrogen plays a direct role in this process by helping regulate the hypothalamus, the part of the brain that controls body temperature. As estrogen declines, hypothalamic regulation becomes less precise, which is the primary reason so many women over 45 experience night sweats, sudden heat, and that disorienting pattern of feeling too warm and then too cold within the same hour. Supporting this process is more straightforward than most women expect. A warm bath or shower in the hour before bed, counterintuitively, accelerates the temperature drop that follows, and research suggests this can meaningfully reduce the time it takes to fall asleep. Keeping the bedroom cool, ideally between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, removes one of the most common physical barriers to staying asleep, and using lightweight, breathable bedding that can be easily adjusted gives the body the flexibility it needs when its own thermostat is no longer as reliable as it once was. Now, I want to pause for a moment here, because if any of this is resonating with you, I want you to know there's a resource that goes much deeper than what one video can cover. It's called the Hormone Reset Guide. It's a structured daily system built specifically for women over 45, and Module 4 is dedicated entirely to sleep, stress, and cortisol, including a clear breakdown of why sleep architecture changes after perimenopause, what is actually happening hormonally when you wake at 3 a.m., and the specific daily habits that may help support more consistent restorative sleep. There's also a bonus inside called the Hormone-Friendly Morning Routine Checklist, because your cortisol rhythm begins the moment you wake up, and how you start your morning has a direct and measurable effect on how well you sleep that night. The link is in the description and pinned in the first comment. If you've been struggling with sleep and want a practical, structured place to begin, it's there for you. Let's continue. Because the fourth thing every woman over 45 needs to hear before bed is this: the way you speak to yourself in the evening is not neutral. For many women, the quiet of the night is when self-criticism becomes loudest. The distractions of the day fall away, and the mind moves toward what went wrong, what wasn't finished, what should have been done differently. After 45, this pattern can intensify. Declining estrogen affects serotonin regulation, and lower serotonin in the evening can make the mind more prone to rumination, the repetitive, circular thinking that keeps women awake long after the lights go out. What matters here isn't toxic positivity or forcing yourself to feel good. It's understanding that the emotional tone you carry into sleep influences how your brain processes the day during the night. Sleep is not passive. The brain is actively consolidating memories and emotional experiences during sleep, and the frame you enter sleep with shapes that consolidation. A brief, deliberate redirection before bed, naming even 2 or 3 specific moments from the day that went reasonably well, can meaningfully shift the emotional input your brain is working with through the night. It doesn't need to be elaborate. It needs to be real. The fifth thing is one that surprises most women, and it has to do with blood sugar. After 45, insulin sensitivity tends to decline as a direct consequence of lower estrogen levels. Estrogen plays an active role in how effectively cells respond to insulin, meaning that as estrogen drops, blood sugar regulation can become less stable, particularly overnight. When blood sugar falls too low during sleep, the body's response is to release cortisol and adrenaline to bring it back up. That hormonal correction is efficient, but it also wakes you up, often at precisely 3 a.m., often with a racing heart, and a mind that immediately feels wide awake, even though nothing external caused it. A small, protein-containing snack in the 1 to 2 hours before bed may help buffer against that overnight blood sugar drop. A handful of walnuts or almonds, a boiled egg, a small serving of plain Greek yogurt, or a little nut butter on a piece of whole grain cracker. These are not large meals. They are small, deliberate sources of protein and fat that help stabilize blood sugar through the night. For many women, this single adjustment is the one that finally explains why they kept waking at the same hour and what to do about it. The sixth thing is about magnesium, and it belongs in any honest conversation about sleep after 45. Magnesium is required for over 300 enzymatic processes in the body, including the regulation of the nervous system, the relaxation of smooth muscle tissue, and the synthesis of melatonin. It also plays a role in GABA activity, the same calming neurotransmitter that progesterone supports. Estrogen influences how efficiently the body absorbs and retains magnesium, which means that as estrogen declines, magnesium status can shift even without any change in dietary intake. Magnesium glycinate, a chelated form with high bioavailability and minimal digestive side effects, is the form most commonly associated with improved sleep quality and reduced nighttime restlessness. It is not a sedative and does not create dependency. It supports the body's existing sleep mechanisms by ensuring the nervous system has adequate resources to carry them out. As with any supplement, discussing it with your healthcare provider is the right first step, particularly if you are on medication. But the evidence supporting magnesium's role in sleep is among the most consistent in the wellness research available to women over 45. And the seventh thing, the one I want to linger on before we move to the close, is the one that underpins all the others. You deserve to be cared for in the nighttime hours, too. Not just the people who depend on you, not just the household, the family, the responsibilities that follow you even into the evening. You, the woman who has spent the day giving, deserve the same quality of attention and gentleness in your final hours of wakefulness that you extend so naturally to everyone else. Your body is not failing you at night. It is doing something extraordinarily complex, regulating temperature, clearing metabolic waste from the brain, restoring tissue, consolidating memory, recalibrating hormonal systems for the following day. It is working, and it works better when you understand what it needs, rather than fighting it for not performing the way it once did. Most women over 45 were never given this information. They were never told that their changing hormones would reshape their nights, or that small, specific adjustments could make a real difference. They were left to conclude that something was wrong with them, when in fact their bodies were simply asking for something different. That distinction matters, and it is exactly why these 7 things needed to be said out loud. I want you to imagine something for a moment. Imagine an evening that feels different from the ones you've been having. Not perfect, just different. You've finished what needed to be done for the day, and instead of carrying the rest of it into the night, you set it down, deliberately, with the quiet understanding that tomorrow is capable of holding what today couldn't finish. You do something small that signals to your body that the day is over. Maybe it's a warm shower. Maybe it's dimming the lights and making something simple and warm to drink. Maybe it's sitting somewhere quiet for 10 minutes without a screen in front of you. Not because someone told you to, but because you've learned that your nervous system responds to that transition, that it needs it, that you need it. You go to bed in a cool, comfortable room. You've had a small, protein-rich snack earlier in the evening, and your blood sugar has something to work with through the night. You've taken your magnesium. You've spent 2 minutes before closing your eyes thinking of something, anything, from the day that went reasonably well. Not to pretend the hard parts didn't happen, just to give your brain a different place to rest. And then something happens that hasn't happened in a while. You fall asleep without a long fight. You don't lie there cataloging your failures or rehearsing tomorrow's worries. Your body temperature settles. Your cortisol has had time to wind down. Your nervous system, which has been working hard since morning, finally gets what it has been asking for. Not because everything in your life changed, but because you understood something about what your body actually needed. And you gave it that. You wake up, not at 3 a.m. with your heart racing and your mind already in overdrive. You wake up when the morning comes. Not every morning, not overnight, not without the occasional hard night in between, but more often than before, more consistently. And when you do wake, there's something different in how you feel. A little less depleted, a little more like yourself. That is not an impossible picture. That is what becomes available when you stop fighting your body and start understanding it. After years of working with women in this exact season of life, the thing I've come to believe most deeply is this. The women who struggle most at night are almost never struggling because something is fundamentally wrong with them. They're struggling because no one ever explained what was happening, or what could help. They were handed the same generic sleep advice designed for a 25-year-old, and when it didn't work, they assumed the problem was them. It was never them. It was always the missing context, the changing hormones, the shifting cortisol curve, the progesterone that once quietly calmed the brain and is now present in smaller amounts, the estrogen that once helped regulate body temperature and insulin sensitivity and magnesium absorption, and whose decline creates ripple effects that most women were never warned about. These aren't signs of decline, they're signs of transition. And transitions, when you understand them, become navigable. That's what I hope you're leaving this video with today. Not a perfect bedtime routine. Not a long list of things you now have to do before you're allowed to rest. Just a different understanding of what your body is doing at night. And a few small, specific things that may help it do that work more effectively. And if you want to go deeper, if you want a structured, practical system that brings all of this together in one place, I want to remind you about the Hormone Reset Guide. It was designed for exactly this moment, for women who are tired of guessing, tired of trying things that don't work, and ready to understand what their bodies actually need after 45. Module 4 walks through sleep, stress, and cortisol in detail. The hormonal reasons sleep changes, the specific habits that may support more restorative nights, and how to build an evening and morning rhythm that works with your biology instead of against it. The hormone-friendly morning routine checklist is included as a bonus because the way you wake up shapes the way you fall asleep, and that connection matters more than most people realize. The link is in the description below and pinned in the first comment. If tonight is the night you decide to do something different, that's a good place to start. I've spent years having conversations with women who felt invisible in their own bodies at night, women who apologized for not sleeping well, as if it were a character flaw, women who had quietly stopped expecting anything from their nights beyond getting through them. What I want most, what I have always wanted most, is for every woman who watches this to leave feeling something shift in how she sees herself. Not because the struggles disappeared, but because she finally understands that her body was never working against her. It was working as hard as it could with what it had, and it was asking, in the only language a body knows, for a little more understanding, a little more cooperation, and a little more of the care she gives so freely to everyone else. Your nights can be different. Your body is not broken. It has simply changed, and now that you understand a little more about how everything begins to look different, thank you for spending this time with me today. I'll see you in the next one.